The ships came on a Tuesday morning. 12,000 of them appeared near Jupiter, their sudden arrival creating ripples in space that astronomers detected within minutes. The vessels were massive beyond human understanding. The smallest was larger than an aircraft carrier. The largest was the size of a small moon. They came from 17 different species, each ship bearing symbols and colors that meant nothing to the people of Earth. For 3 years, humanity had known they were not alone. First contact had been peaceful, even hopeful. Alien traders had arrived with technology and promises of galactic community. Earth's governments had celebrated. Scientists had wept with joy. Children had dreamed of the stars. Now those dreams turned to ash. The transmission reached every screen on Earth at the same moment. Television broadcasts cut to static, then reformed into the image of a creature that looked like a tall, gray-skinned humanoid with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. It wore robes of deep purple, and when it spoke, the words came in perfect English, translated by technology humanity could not understand. "I am Ambassador Zethral of the Vorn Hegemony, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council," the creature said. Its voice was calm and cold, like a judge reading a death sentence. "The Council has completed its evaluation of the species known as humanity. You have been classified as a Class 7 aggressor species. In living rooms and offices and hospitals across the world, people stopped what they were doing. They gathered around screens. They held their breath. Your species has demonstrated consistent patterns of internal warfare, territorial aggression, and weapons development," Zethral continued. "You have created nuclear weapons capable of destroying your own world. You have committed genocide against your own kind. Your psychological profiles indicate dangerous instability that poses a threat to galactic peace." The ambassador paused. Its 4 eyes seemed to look directly at every person watching. "The Galactic Council has therefore ordered the immediate surrender of Earth. You will dismantle all military forces. You will destroy all weapons. You will submit to rehabilitation governance under Council oversight. You have 72 hours to comply. Failure to do so will result in planetary sterilization." The transmission ended. For a long moment, the world was silent. Then, the panic began. In Geneva, Switzerland, the United Defense Council met within hours. The organization had been created after first contact, a global body meant to coordinate humanity's response to alien life. Now its members sat around a curved table in a bunker deep underground, watching military reports scroll across their screens. "The fleet has taken position between Earth and Mars," said General Chen Wei of China. His face was gray with exhaustion. "Our satellites count 12,400 vessels. Their smallest ships outgun our largest warships." "What about our nuclear arsenals?" asked President Williams of the United States. "Useless," Chen replied. "Their ships have energy shields. Our missiles would never reach them." The room fell into argument. Some leaders demanded surrender. What choice did they have? Fighting was suicide. Others refused to accept alien rule. A few suggested negotiation, hoping to find some middle ground. General Elena Vasquez listened to them argue. She was 53 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battlefields. She commanded Earth's Planetary Defense Initiative, a secret project that most of the people in this room did not know existed. "We need to know what rehabilitation means," she said quietly. The room fell silent. Vasquez pressed a button on the table, and a new document appeared on everyone's screen. "Our intelligence teams have been studying Council communications for 3 years," she explained. "We've broken some of their codes. This is what rehabilitation means." She read aloud as the others followed along. "Chemical pacification. They will introduce compounds into our water and air that suppress aggression and independent thought. Genetic modification. They will alter our DNA to remove what they call dangerous traits. This includes creativity, ambition, and the capacity for anger. Permanent quarantine. Earth will be sealed. No human will ever leave the solar system." Vasquez looked around the table. "We would survive," she said. "But we would no longer be human. We would be pets, controlled, docile, and forever trapped on this rock." The Prime Minister of India leaned forward. "Surely we can negotiate. Explain that we've changed, that we want peace." "They don't care what we want," Vasquez replied. "They've done this to over 200 species. Every world they've rehabilitated is now a quiet, peaceful planet full of creatures that no longer have the will to resist. That is the Council's definition of peace." President Williams slammed his hand on the table. Then what do you suggest? We cannot fight 12,000 warships. Vasquez stood. She walked to the main screen and entered a code. The display changed to show a map of the solar system, dotted with thousands of small red markers. 3 years ago, when we first made contact, I asked myself a question. She said, "What happens if they're not friendly? What happens if they decide we're a threat?" She gestured at the screen. This is my answer. The room stared at the display. The red markers were everywhere, hidden in asteroid fields, buried in lunar craters, disguised as space debris, orbiting Saturn's moons. The Prometheus network, Vasquez continued. Weapons platforms built in secret, using technology we reverse-engineered from alien traders. Kinetic impactors that can accelerate metal slugs to 12% of light speed, nuclear missiles with enhanced warheads, and something else. She changed the display again. A technical diagram appeared. Antimatter warheads, crude, unstable, but powerful beyond anything the Council has ever faced. We have 47 of them. The Chinese general was the first to speak. You built weapons of mass destruction in secret, without authorization. I built humanity a chance, Vasquez replied. A small one, but a chance. A chance to do what? The Indian Prime Minister demanded. You said yourself we cannot win. Vasquez turned to face them all. Her expression was hard, but her eyes held something that might have been sorrow. No, she admitted. We cannot win. But we can make them pay such a terrible price that they will never try this again. We can show every species in the galaxy that humanity does not surrender. We can die on our feet instead of living on our knees. She paused. Or we can take their deal. Let them change us. Let them take away everything that makes us who we are. Live forever as shadows of ourselves. The vote took less than an hour. 12 nations voted to fight. 3 abstained. None voted to surrender. At exactly midnight, Geneva time, a transmission was broadcast from Earth to the waiting alien fleet. It was short. It contained no threats, no explanations, no pleas for mercy. We have received your terms, General Elena Vasquez said, her image appearing on every alien command screen. We decline. Aboard the flagship of the Vorn hegemony, Ambassador Zethral stared at the screen in disbelief. In all his years of service, in all the hundreds of worlds he had brought into Council compliance, no species had ever refused. They are bluffing, said Admiral Kethvoran, commander of the fleet. They have no choice but to surrender. And if they are not bluffing? Zethral asked. The Admiral's 4 eyes narrowed. Then we burn their world and move on. One primitive species means nothing to the Council. He gave the order to advance. In Geneva, General Vasquez watched the alien fleet begin to move. She thought about her daughter, who lived in Buenos Aires. She thought about the billions of people who would die if she was wrong. She thought about the billions more who would lose their souls if she did nothing. She picked up the phone. Activate Prometheus, she said. All platforms. Authorization code. The war had begun. Admiral Kethvoran stood on the command bridge of the Eternal Law, the greatest warship in the Galactic Council's fleet. The ship was 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Around it, 12,000 vessels moved in perfect formation toward the small blue world called Earth. The Admiral was not worried. He had conquered 11 worlds in his career. Each time, the pattern was the same. The primitive species would panic, beg, and eventually submit. Humanity would be no different. Their refusal to surrender was nothing more than a desperate gesture, the last growl of a dying animal. Time to weapons range? He asked. 14 minutes, Admiral. His tactical officer replied. Kethvoran allowed himself a small smile. In less than an hour, Earth would burn. Another troublesome species would be erased from the galaxy. The Council would praise his efficiency. He never saw the first attack coming. Deep in the asteroid belt, a platform that looked like a dead rock suddenly came alive. It had waited for 3 years, silent and patient, its systems powered down to avoid detection. Now it received a signal from Earth, and its weapons activated. A railgun the size of a building charged for exactly 0.3 seconds. Then it fired. The metal slug was small, only the size of a human fist. But it traveled at 12% of the speed of light, which meant it crossed the vast distance between the asteroid belt and the Council fleet in minutes. When it struck the Vorn destroyer Righteous Purpose, The kinetic energy released was equal to a small nuclear bomb. The destroyer simply ceased to exist. Across the solar system, 3,000 hidden platforms fired at once. Admiral Keth Varan watched in horror as his tactical display turned red with damage reports. Ships were dying everywhere. Kinetic slugs tore through hulls. Nuclear missiles, primitive but effective, detonated against shields until the shields failed. And then came something worse. 3 of the largest council vessels vanished in blinding white light. The light was so bright that it burned out sensors on ships thousands of kilometers away. When the light faded, nothing remained. Not debris, not dust, nothing. What weapon was that? The Admiral demanded. His science officer's hands trembled as she checked her readings. Antimatter, Admiral. They are using antimatter warheads. The bridge fell silent. Antimatter weapons were considered too dangerous to use. The Council had banned them centuries ago. The idea that a primitive species would build and deploy such things was beyond comprehension. They are insane, someone whispered. Admiral Keth Varan gripped the arms of his command chair. In the first 10 minutes of battle, he had lost 73 ships. 73. Against a species that had only left its own planet a few decades ago. Return fire, he ordered. All ships, destroy those weapons platforms. The Council fleet responded with overwhelming force. Energy beams lanced across space, vaporizing asteroids and the hidden weapons they contained. Missiles launched by the thousands. The platforms died one by one, their human crews knowing they would never see home again. But for every platform destroyed, another fired. And another. In Geneva, General Vasquez monitored the battle from her command center. The news was mixed. Prometheus was performing better than expected, but it was not enough. The Council fleet was too large. Eventually, they would push through Earth's defenses and begin the bombardment. She had known this would happen. The weapons platforms were never meant to win the war. They were meant to buy time and to send a message. Now it was time for the second part of the plan. Open a channel to the Council flagship, she ordered. When Admiral Keth Varan's face appeared on her screen, Vasquez saw something she had not expected. The alien looked shaken. Good. That meant the first message had been received. Admiral, she said calmly, I hope we have your attention. You have signed your death warrant. The Admiral snarled. Every human on that planet will burn for this. Perhaps, Vasquez replied. But before you give that order, there are some things you should know. She pressed a button, and data began streaming to the Council fleet. What you are receiving now is the location of 17 hidden ships that left Earth months ago. They are traveling toward Council space using stolen faster-than-light technology. Each ship carries a payload of antimatter warheads and engineered biological weapons. The Admiral's 4 eyes went wide. These ships are aimed at the homeworlds of every species in your fleet. Vasquez continued. They are programmed to detonate if they do not receive a signal from Earth every 12 hours. If you destroy our planet, those signals stop, and your worlds die with us. She let that sink in for a moment. We call this the doctrine of spite, Admiral. We know we cannot defeat you, but we can make sure that if we fall, we do not fall alone. Every species in your council will pay the price for Earth's destruction. Keth Varan's voice was barely a whisper. You would murder billions of innocent people? People who have done nothing to you? We would rather not, Vasquez said honestly. We would rather live in peace. We would rather join the galactic community and explore the stars with you. But you gave us no choice. Surrender or die, you said. Those were your only options. She leaned forward. So we created a third option. Mutual destruction. If humanity dies, so does everyone who killed us. It is not a good option. It is not a moral option. But it is the only option you left us. The transmission ended. Aboard the Eternal Law, chaos erupted. Commanders from other species demanded explanations. Some called for immediate attack, arguing that the humans were bluffing. Others demanded retreat, unwilling to risk their homeworlds on the chance that this was a trick. Admiral Keth Varan silenced them all with a roar. Scan the projected flight paths, he ordered. Find those ships. His officers worked frantically. Minutes passed. Then the science officer looked up, her face pale. We have detected 17 vessels matching the human description, she reported. They are beyond our intercept range. At their current speed, they will reach Council space in approximately 6 months. Can we warn our homeworlds? Have them prepare defenses? Unknown. Admiral. The human biological weapons are unfamiliar to us. We do not know if we can develop countermeasures in time. The Admiral stared at the blue planet on his view screen. Such a small world. Such a young species. And they had done this. He had studied humanity before the invasion. He knew their history of war, their capacity for violence. But he had dismissed it as primitive aggression. The kind of behavior that civilized species outgrew. He had not understood. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not calculate acceptable losses and retreat when the odds turned against them. They did not value their own survival above all else. They were capable of something the Council had never encountered before. They were capable of choosing death, as long as they could take their enemies with them. Admiral, his communications officer said quietly, the Council demands a report. They want to know why we have stopped our advance. Kethvoran looked at his fleet. Dozens of ships were still burning. Thousands of his soldiers were dead. And ahead of him sat a planet full of creatures who had just promised to destroy everything he loved if he continued. Tell the Council, he said slowly, that we have a situation. He ordered the fleet to hold position. On Earth, General Vasquez watched the alien armada stop. She allowed herself a small moment of relief. The bluff had worked. For now, but she knew this was only the beginning. Fear was a powerful weapon, but it faded with time. Eventually, the Council would test humanity's resolve. They would probe for weakness, look for ways to neutralize the hidden ships, search for some advantage that would let them destroy Earth without consequences. Humanity had bought itself time. Days, perhaps weeks, but not safety. Never safety. She turned to her staff. Begin Phase 3. I want options for negotiation, but keep our weapons armed, and someone get me everything we have on Council politics. If we cannot defeat them with missiles, perhaps we can defeat them with words. The war was far from over. But for the first time, humanity had a chance. The Galactic Council had ruled the known universe for 3,000 years. In that time, they had encountered over 400 intelligent species. Some had welcomed the Council's guidance. Others had resisted. All had eventually submitted. Now, for the first time in their long history, the Council did not know what to do. The emergency session took place aboard the diplomatic sphere, a massive station that served as neutral ground for all member species. Representatives from 17 races gathered in a chamber designed to accommodate beings of every size and shape. The air was filled with the sounds of a dozen languages and the hum of translation devices. Ambassador Zethral of the Vorn hegemony stood at the center of the chamber, facing the judgment of his peers. You told us Earth would surrender, said High Counselor Vethmara, the eldest of the Vorn. You said they were primitive, disorganized, incapable of unified resistance. Explain what happened. Zethral's 4 eyes looked at the floor. I underestimated them, High Counselor. We all did. Underestimated? The voice came from the Kreth delegation, a species of insectoid beings known for their aggressive expansion. You lost 73 ships to a species that discovered electricity 200 years ago. You let them threaten our homeworlds with weapons of mass destruction. This is beyond failure. This is humiliation. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Admiral Kethvoran stepped forward to defend himself. The humans used tactics we have never encountered. They hid weapons throughout their solar system. They developed antimatter technology in secret. They sent sleeper ships toward our worlds before we even arrived. These are not the actions of a primitive species. Then what are they? Demanded the Kreth representative. Before anyone could answer, a new voice filled the chamber. It was soft, ancient, and carried the weight of countless centuries. They are exactly what we feared they might be. The speaker was Kethron, an observer of the Rylith, the oldest civilization in the galaxy. The Rylith had existed for 40,000 years. They no longer built empires or fought wars. They simply watched, studied, and occasionally offered wisdom to younger species. Kethron floated into the center of the chamber, his body a mass of gently glowing tendrils. The other representatives fell silent. When a Rylith spoke, wise beings listened. I have studied humanity since first contact, Kethron said. I warned the Council that they were different. You did not listen. High Counselor Vethmara frowned. Different how? They are aggressive, yes. Violent. But we have dealt with violent species before. You do not understand. Kethron's tendrils pulsed with soft light. Other violent species fight to win. They calculate odds, measure risks, and retreat when victory becomes impossible. Humans do not think this way. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed scenes from human history, wars, battles, soldiers charging into hopeless situations. Observe their history. At a place called Thermopylae, 300 human warriors fought against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they would die. They fought anyway. At a place called Stalingrad, millions of humans died defending a single city, refusing to retreat even when defeat was certain. At a place called the Alamo, a small group of defenders chose death over surrender. The images changed, showing nuclear weapons detonating over cities. They created weapons capable of destroying their entire species. Kithron continued. They pointed these weapons at each other. They lived for decades knowing that any moment could bring total annihilation, and they did not go mad. They did not destroy themselves. They simply accepted the possibility of extinction as a fact of life. The chamber was completely silent. Humans are psychologically unique, the observer concluded. They are capable of choosing mutual destruction. They can look at certain death and say, "This is acceptable." No other species in Council records has demonstrated this trait. We classified them as aggressive because we had no other category. But the truth is more disturbing. Humans are not aggressive. They are desperate. They fight like cornered animals because, in their minds, they are always cornered. The Kreth representative stirred. This is philosophy. We need solutions. How do we defeat them? You do not, Kithron replied simply. Impossible. We have 12,000 ships. They have a single planet. And they have sleeper ships aimed at your worlds. Ships carrying antimatter and biological weapons. If you destroy Earth, your homeworld dies too. The observer's tendrils curled in what might have been a gesture of sorrow. You can kill them all, but they will take you with them. They have made this very clear. And unlike other species who make such threats, humans mean it. He turned to address the full council. I have run the calculations with the Minar collective intelligence. The human threat is credible. Their sleeper ships are real. Their dead man switches are armed. If we proceed with the original plan, we will destroy Earth. And then, 6 months later, 17 council homeworlds will face extinction. The Vorn, the Kreth, the Minar, all of us. Then we intercept the sleeper ships, Admiral Kethvaran said desperately. They are beyond intercept range. We would need to send our fastest vessels in pursuit, leaving Earth unguarded. And the humans have undoubtedly anticipated this. There will be other traps, other weapons we have not discovered. The Admiral fell silent. High Counselor Vethmara rose from her seat. What do you suggest, Observer? That we simply let them go? Accept that a primitive species has defied the Council and won? I suggest, Kithron said carefully, that we consider the possibility that conquest is not the answer. Humans are dangerous, yes, but they are also creative, adaptable, and surprisingly capable of cooperation when they choose to be. Perhaps they would make better allies than subjects. Allies. The Kreth representative's mandibles clicked with disgust. With creatures who threaten genocide? We threatened them first, Kithron reminded him. We told them to surrender or die. They chose a third option. Can you truly blame them for refusing to submit to rehabilitation, to chemical pacification and genetic modification, to the death of everything they are? The chamber erupted in argument. Some species demanded immediate attack, willing to sacrifice their homeworlds to eliminate the human threat forever. Others called for retreat and negotiation. A few suggested studying humanity further before making any decision. Through it all, Kithron watched in silence. He was 4,000 years old, ancient even by Rylith standards. He had seen empires rise and fall, species evolve and die. And in all that time, he had never encountered anything quite like humanity. They were young, barely out of their cradle world. They were primitive, still using chemical rockets and nuclear power. They were violent, fractured, and self-destructive, and yet they had done something no other species had ever accomplished. They had looked at the Galactic Council's 12,000 warships and said no. The observer made a decision. It was not his place to interfere in council politics. The Rylith had given up such involvement long ago. But some situations required breaking old rules. He would go to Earth himself. He would speak to these humans, try to understand them. Perhaps he could find a way to end this conflict without more death. Or perhaps he would learn that humanity was truly as dangerous as they appeared, and the Council had no choice but to destroy them, whatever the cost. Either way, he needed to know the truth. The Council session ended without resolution. For the first time in 3,000 years, the greatest power in the galaxy was paralyzed by indecision. And in the skies above Earth, 12,000 warships waited, uncertain whether to attack or withdraw. On the small blue planet below, humanity waited too. They had thrown their defiance in the face of an empire. Now they could only hope that their gamble would pay off. General Elena Vasquez sat in her command center, watching the alien fleet hover motionlessly in space. She had not slept in 3 days. She wondered how long the standoff would last. She wondered if she had made the right choice. She wondered if she would live long enough to find out. The small shuttle crossed the distance between the Council fleet and Earth alone. It carried no weapons, no escort, no protection, except a white light that signaled peaceful intentions. Inside sat Kithron, the Rylith observer, traveling to meet the species that had shaken the galaxy. General Elena Vasquez waited for him at a military base in Switzerland. She had chosen the location carefully. The mountains around them were beautiful, covered in snow and pine trees. She wanted the alien to see that Earth was more than weapons and threats. It was also a world worth protecting. The shuttle landed on a cleared field, and Kithron emerged. He moved slowly, his tendril-covered body floating just above the ground. Human soldiers watched from a distance, their weapons ready but lowered. They had never seen a Rylith before. Few species had. Vasquez stepped forward and extended her hand. "Welcome to Earth, observer." Kithron studied her for a moment, then wrapped one of his tendrils gently around her fingers. "Thank you, General. I hope we can speak honestly with each other." "I would prefer nothing else," she replied. They walked together through the base, entering a simple meeting room with large windows overlooking the mountains. Vasquez had ordered all recording devices removed. This conversation would be between them, alone. "You took a risk coming here," she said, pouring 2 glasses of water. "Some of my people wanted to take you hostage, and you stopped them? Taking hostages is not who we want to be." She sat down across from him. "Besides, it would not help. The Council would simply attack, and we would all die." Kithron accepted the water, though his species did not drink. The gesture of hospitality mattered more than the liquid itself. "You are not what I expected," he admitted. "The reports describe humanity as aggressive, irrational, driven by emotion. You seem calm, thoughtful." "I have had a lot of practice hiding my fear," Vasquez said with a tired smile. "The truth is, I am terrified. Every hour, I wonder if I have doomed my entire species. You made the choice to resist. You could have surrendered. Could we?" She shook her head. "You know what rehabilitation means. You have seen what happens to species that accept it. The Trell were poets once, artists, dreamers. Now they sit on their world and do nothing, feel nothing, create nothing. Their souls were taken from them. We could not accept that fate." The observer was quiet for a long moment. "I have wondered about the rehabilitation program for many years. The Council believes it creates peace. But peace without choice is just another kind of death. Then you understand why we fight." "I understand," Kithron agreed. "But I do not understand how you can fight the way you do. You have aimed weapons at innocent worlds, billions of beings who have done nothing to you. How do you live with that?" Vasquez looked out the window at the mountains. The sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of orange and pink. "Let me tell you about human history," she said quietly. "We have a long record of conquest. Empire after empire, one group of humans conquering another. And we learned something from that history. Something important." She turned back to face him. "We learned what happens to those who cannot fight back. They are enslaved, erased, forgotten. Their children grow up speaking the conqueror's language, worshipping the conqueror's gods, forgetting who they once were. Entire peoples have vanished from our world because they trusted their conquerors to show mercy." Her voice hardened. "We did not build doomsday weapons because we wanted to threaten innocent people. We built them because we remembered what happens when you have nothing to threaten with. We built them because mercy is a gift that the weak pray for and the strong rarely give." "So you became strong," Kithron said. "We became dangerous. There is a difference." She leaned forward. If your council had come to us with open hands, offering trade and friendship, we would have welcomed you. We are not monsters. We build hospitals and schools. We write poetry and make music. We fall in love and raise children, and dream of better futures. But you did not offer friendship. You offered chains. The council feared you. They should have feared us less, and respected us more. Vasquez sighed. We did not want this war, but we could not accept slavery. So we found a third option. The only one you left us. The observer considered her words carefully. He had lived for 4,000 years, watching species rise and fall. He had seen the council bring order to the galaxy, sometimes through kindness, sometimes through force. He had believed, for most of his long life, that the council's way was the best way. Now he was not so certain. What do you want? He asked finally. If not war, if not surrender, what would humanity accept? Vasquez had prepared for this question. She pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. Recognition as a sovereign species. Equal status in the galactic community. Trade agreements based on mutual benefit, not exploitation. The right to develop our own technology, choose our own path, make our own mistakes. That is standard for any council member. Kythron noted. There is one more thing. Vasquez's eyes met his. We want you to release the others. Every species the council has rehabilitated. Every world you have pacified. Let them choose their own futures, even if those futures are messy and violent and imperfect. Freedom is not just for humanity. It is for everyone. The observer stared at her. You are asking us to dismantle our entire system of control. Yes, many species would choose violence. Wars would break out. Millions could die. Probably, Vasquez admitted. Freedom is dangerous, but it is still better than the alternative. Kythron floated in silence for a long time. Outside, darkness had fallen over the mountains. Stars appeared in the sky, including the distant lights of the council fleet still orbiting Earth. You ask for something the council has never considered, he said at last. Most members will refuse. Some will demand your destruction, whatever the cost. I know. You could die. Your entire species could be wiped out. I know that too. Vasquez smiled sadly. But we have already accepted that possibility. We accepted it the moment we refused to surrender. All we can do now is try to make our death mean something. If we fall, let us fall demanding freedom for others. Let our last act be something worth remembering. The observer rose from his seat. His tendrils glowed with soft light, reflecting emotions that human faces could not read. I will return to the council, he said. I will present your terms. I cannot promise they will accept. I am not asking for promises. I am asking for a chance. Kythron moved toward the door, then paused. You are a strange species, General. You create beautiful things and terrible things in equal measure. You are capable of great kindness and great cruelty. You confuse me. Vasquez stood and walked him to the shuttle. We confuse ourselves most of the time, she admitted. But that is what it means to be human. We are not finished yet. We are still deciding what we want to become. The observer boarded his shuttle. Before the door closed, he looked back at her one final time. Whatever happens next, he said, I am glad I came. You have given me much to think about. The shuttle rose into the night sky, carrying humanity's demands to the stars. Vasquez watched it go. Then she returned to her command center to wait. The universe would give its answer soon enough. The vote tore the Galactic Council apart. For 3 days, representatives argued in the great chamber of the diplomatic sphere. Voices rose and fell in 17 languages. Threats were made. Alliances crumbled. Ancient friendships broke under the weight of impossible choices. The Kreeth demanded war. Destroy them all, their leader insisted. Let our homeworlds burn if they must. We cannot let a primitive species defy us and survive. The Minar, a collective intelligence of billions of linked minds, calculated endless scenarios. Victory is possible, they announced. But the cost is unacceptable. We project the loss of 8 to 12 council homeworlds. Trillions of deaths. Our civilization would not recover for centuries. 6 species withdrew from the council entirely. They wanted no part of a war that could destroy them. Their fleets departed for home, leaving gaps in the formation around Earth. High Counselor Vethmara watched her alliance crumble. Everything the council had built over 3,000 years was falling apart. and the cause was a single small planet that refused to kneel. Observer Kithron spoke last. "I have walked on Earth," he said, his ancient voice filling the chamber. "I have spoken with their leader. They are not monsters. They are frightened beings who fight because they see no other choice. We created this crisis by demanding their surrender. We can end it by offering them dignity instead." He presented humanity's terms: sovereignty, freedom, and the release of all rehabilitated species. The chamber exploded in outrage. The Vorn called it blackmail. The Kreth called it surrender. But a growing number of younger species looked at the demands and saw something else. They saw justice. The Telari, a species of scholars who had long questioned the rehabilitation program, stood first. "We support the human terms," their representative declared. "The rehabilitation system was always wrong. We were simply too afraid to say so." Others followed. The Wren, the Keleth, the Vorathi, species that had joined the Council for Protection but never agreed with its methods. One by one, they stood. When the vote finally came, it was closer than anyone expected. 8 species supported humanity's terms, 6 opposed, 3 abstained. It was not enough for a clear decision. Admiral Keth Voran watched the vote from his flagship with growing fury. He had devoted his life to the Council. He had conquered worlds in their name, believing he was bringing order to chaos, and now they were going to surrender to savages? He would not allow it. "All ships," he broadcast on a private channel to the commanders loyal to him, "prepare for attack. We end this now." The Eternal Law broke formation and accelerated toward Earth, followed by 300 vessels whose commanders shared the Admiral's rage, their weapons charged, energy building for a strike that would burn cities from the surface. In Geneva, alarms screamed. General Vasquez looked at her tactical display and understood immediately. The Admiral has gone rogue. He's attacking without Council authorization. "Should we launch everything we have?" her aide asked. Vasquez considered the question for exactly 2 seconds. "No. That would justify their war. We respond with precision." She opened a channel to a single weapons platform. It was hidden in the asteroid belt, 4 light seconds away. Just one platform. Just one weapon. Station Prometheus 7. "This is General Vasquez. Target the lead enemy ship. Fire when ready." In the cold darkness of space, the platform came alive. Its railgun was the largest humanity had ever built, capable of accelerating a tungsten rod to 15% of light speed. The targeting computers locked onto the Eternal Law. The gun charged and fired. Admiral Keth Voran never saw it coming. The tungsten rod crossed 4 light seconds in less than 3 minutes. It struck the Eternal Law just below the bridge, punching through shields that were designed to stop energy weapons. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to 1,000 nuclear bombs detonating at once. The greatest warship in the Galactic Council's fleet ceased to exist. The other ships in the Admiral's fleet stopped their advance. Their commanders stared at the empty space where their flagship had been. No debris, no wreckage, just nothing. On the diplomatic sphere, the Council watched in stunned silence. They did not attack the other ships, High Counselor Vethmara said slowly. They could have. But they only destroyed the vessel that threatened them. "Precision," Kithron said quietly. "They are capable of both total destruction and surgical accuracy. They chose accuracy." The Minar spoke, their collective voice echoing through the chamber. "Analysis complete. The human weapon struck from beyond our maximum engagement range. They can hit targets across interplanetary distances with speed and precision we cannot match. Our energy weapons would require minutes to reach them. Their kinetic projectiles arrive in seconds. They did not develop better shields," Kithron observed. "They simply learned to throw rocks very hard. They have had 50,000 years of killing each other to perfect their aim." A new vote was called. This time, there was no debate. 11 species voted to accept humanity's terms. Only 2 voted to continue the war. Their fleets departed immediately, unwilling to face a species that could destroy them across millions of kilometers. The war was over. On Earth, General Vasquez received the news in silence. Her staff celebrated around her, cheering and embracing. They had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had stood its ground and survived. But Vasquez did not celebrate. She thought about the Admiral she had killed. She thought about the 17 sleeper ships still flying toward Council space, their terrible cargo waiting to be unleashed. She thought about what humanity had become in order to survive. A young officer approached her. "General, they're asking if we should recall the sleeper ships." Vasquez looked out the window at the sky. Somewhere up there, the Council fleet was preparing to withdraw. Somewhere beyond that, 17 ships carried humanity's darkest promise. "Keep them flying for now," she said, "until the treaties are signed, until the rehabilitated species are free. Trust takes time to build. And after that?" She did not answer. Some deterrence only worked if the enemy was never sure. 3 months later, the first treaty was signed. Earth became a sovereign world, recognized as an equal by the remaining council members. Trade agreements followed. Cultural exchanges began. Human ships, built with a combination of alien technology and human determination, started exploring the stars. The rehabilitation program was suspended. One by one, the pacified species began receiving treatments to restore their original neural patterns. It would take years, perhaps decades, for them to fully recover. But they would recover, because humanity had demanded it. 5 years after the standoff, a human diplomatic vessel arrived at the Minar homeworld for the first Galactic Congress where humanity held a voting seat. Other species watched the human delegates with mixed fascination and fear. The humans smiled, shook hands and appendages, and spoke of peace and cooperation. But every species noticed the same thing. Even the diplomats moved like soldiers. They watched exits. They never sat with their backs to doors. They were friendly, charming, and completely ready to fight at any moment. The galaxy had many ancient, wise, and powerful species. It had species that commanded vast fleets and controlled technologies beyond human understanding. But it had only one species that looked at overwhelming force, calculated the odds, and answered with a simple word: no. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same. On the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel, the human ambassador stood alone, watching the alien stars. She was young, barely 40, but she carried herself like someone much older. Her name was Sofia Vasquez, Elena's daughter. A Rylith observer floated up beside her. It was Kithron, now the official liaison between his people and humanity. "Your mother would be proud," he said quietly. Sofia smiled. She would say, "We got lucky, and that luck never lasts. Then we must build something more lasting than luck." They watched the stars together in comfortable silence. Somewhere in the depths of space, 17 ships still flew. Their weapons were armed. Their dead man's switches were active. Humanity hoped they would never be needed, but hope was not safety. And humanity had learned, through 10,000 years of bloody history, that safety required vigilance. They would shake hands with the galaxy. They would trade and talk and build relationships. They would try, genuinely, to be good neighbors among the stars. But they would never forget the lesson Earth had taught them. Peace was precious, freedom was priceless, and both required the strength to say no, even when the whole universe demanded surrender. That was what it meant to be human, and humanity would never apologize for it.